All right, everybody. Well, shall we get going? Let's get rolling. My name's Kirk Deeter. I'm the editor of Trout Magazine with Trout Unlimited. And we've got a panel today of friends, and we're going to have a little bit of a campfire type discussion about an important issue, one that I think is a defining issue for anglers of this generation, and that's removal of the four dams, specifically on the lower Snake River. And what's at stake is salmon and steelhead in the lower 48, a significant portion of them. And so I'm going to let these guys get into the details, but I'll make quick introductions, and then we'll just maybe throw a softball question out there to get things started, to tip things off, and then we'll go from there. We will invite some questions if you have some that you want to add to the comment thread. Greg McReynolds from Trout Unlimited is going to be kind of master of ceremonies behind the scenes, and he's helping out. Joining me also from Trout Unlimited is Tom Reed. Tom and I go way back, too far back to want to even discuss really in public. But no, we've fought some battles and won some battles over the years, Tom, and it's always good to see your face and we'll talk about lots of good stuff, and it's heartwarming to see you. Simon Perkins, president of the Orvis Company, also a good friend, and we had some fun times. We went to Cuba together several years ago, and great conservation conscience. The family story, the company story is one of my favorite stories in fly fishing. So we're going to want to dive into that. And then Mike Beard is joining us also. He's the owner from Northwest Outfitters in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and avid steelhead angler and great owner of shop and part of the industry. And we're all working toward a common thread here, and that is we've got to remove these dams. And there's some urgency, guys, to this. This is not something that we're trying to fend off in the future. That's like the threat that Pebble Mine was. There's still work to be done there, but this is a problem much like the Everglades or other issues where we've got a serious disaster happening in terms of how salmon and steelhead populations are being affected. And maybe, Tom, you can start us off by kind of setting the stage and telling us what's going on, why we need to tune in, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity for us. You look at what's happening on the Snake as compared to what happened in the past, and we just came out in Trout Magazine with a special issue of the magazine. It's obviously backwards, but and it just I wrote a couple articles in there, and one thing that was really obvious to me is how poor the fishing is now as compared to even just back in the 60s, which isn't really that long ago. I'm old enough to have been born in the 60s, so I don't think I'm quite that old. But I think when I look at the issue of the Snake, is we're going to lose these wild fish, salmon and steelhead both, if we don't get these dams out. And we also have a great opportunity to bring back a fishery that was stupendous. Like I say, back into the 60s was just tremendous fishery where people in Idaho and Washington really depended upon the harvest of the salmon coming up the river every year, and the steelhead. And as I wrote this piece called "The River That Was" in Trout Magazine, I was fortunate enough to interview some old timers that were around then and had caught salmon and steelhead in the river back in the day, and their stories are just incredible. And I just think that that's what we need to do. We have an incredible opportunity economically, and we have an incredible opportunity environmentally to bring back a fishery to something that could be absolutely world class once again.
Yeah, that's for sure. And maybe, Simon, you could jump in here too. And obviously Orvis has got a long-standing tradition of jumping into these issues and kind of carrying the torch. I mean, conservation is not just an afterthought for Orvis. It's part of your working mantra going forward, and has been for many years. Maybe you can touch on that, and why, and then how the company's connected with the Snake and so forth. And then we'll kick it over to Mike, who's boots in the water And he can maybe give us a little bit of one update on the situation and what he's seeing going on.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, thanks for the thanks for the opportunity. It's always enjoyable to connect with all of you, and it's also really rewarding to talk about issues like this that really have a big impact in this small little funny sport industry that means so much to so many of us, right? And it really helps us understand how much this means to so many beyond just our industry too. But specifically to answer your question around Orvis, I mean, so Orvis is a family company, and as you know, anybody knows, as part of a family company, what blurs between personal and professional is much, right? There's a lot that overlaps there. And so this idea behind conservation, I mean, it was kind of, I guess I was very fortunate that it was able to be there for me from day one, right? I saw it growing up with my grandfather and my father and my uncle and others in the family, and they were just as passionate about protecting species as they were fishing and hunting them. And again, when you think about a business, a brand, a community, you think about local communities, you think about organizations. I mean, those that can, it's a nice advantage to be able to think long term. But just on a personal level, outside of all of that, I mean, fishing and hunting, it's really a way to intimately connect with species and habitat and to learn about them. And when you learn about these things, you become so close to them, it's hard not to fall in love with them. And when you fall in love with them, once that happens, you want to protect them. And so that mantra was both sort of I guess a kind of a subconscious personal family mantra, but it's also became a pillar, a core value for the company around this idea of looking at the long term and protecting what we love, really. And so it's why in the 1980s we started giving 5% of our profits to protecting nature, and that was just the beginning of something that's really, really important, not just to the family, but so many of the employees mention it over and over again. This is one of the reasons why they like working for Orvis. They want to be a part of this. They want to be part of a brand that cares and that puts in the time and effort. And that's pretty special to hear. And I think the biggest thing, Kirk, there is what our customers have told us, which is, I think this is meaning more and more to people every single day, which is really important. And what they like having a trusted guide, if you will, a brand that they can trust, an organization that they can trust, a local outfitter that they can trust, because sometimes they don't know what to believe, right? And so being able to be a brand, being able to be a nonprofit, being able to be an outfitter that people can trust, it's such a cool and powerful responsibility to have. And it's one I know we take, we really, really try to honor, because that credibility is powerful. And so how can we use that to help people think about these things, help them understand how to think about it, how to focus on the most important things, and even though there are tons of important things, but help them navigate it, because there's a lot here. There's so many layers to this, and as you'll see, we'll be able to nerd out on this in a big way. But being able to help people wrap their head around it so that they can care, so that they can participate, there are more and more people that want to do it. So that's a really special role to play. But as far as how we're as a brand, we specifically are vested in the region. We have 1,000 guides who work in the area who are on the pro program. We have 33 endorsed partners who work in the area, lodges, dealers, outfitters, and we have 400,000 customers in the area. And that doesn't even count the ones who come to visit or who would come to visit. So that's just a quick recap on why this means a lot to Orvis, why it means a lot to me and many others kind of behind the brand.
Well, thank you. Mike, turn to you real quick. And then again, you guys feel free to ask questions of each other as we go along here. But you're our boots in the water. You've seen a lot of that evolution in recent years, and you hear the scuttlebutt. In the one sense, this is a regional issue. We're talking about a region of the West, and the snake is one thing. But imagine if I said there wouldn't be any white-tailed deer in the upper Midwest, or there wouldn't be any redfish in the Gulf Coast, or species like that at that magnitude. That's exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about 50% of the salmon and steelhead in the lower 48 or thereabouts. So that's something that caught my attention as an editor who lives in Colorado. Yeah, I care about this too, but maybe you can give us some boots in the water, local perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me. I do, like you said earlier, this is kind of like the Everglades. This is an opportunity for us to make impacts now. And I've seen more conversation coming in the last few years, which has been really great to see. I think there's been proposals that have taken into consideration more than just fishing. And Simon just alluded to it. It's about the species. It's a keystone. If we do a lot of things right, the steelhead and salmon are going to come back and benefit us all. But it's a more encompassing thing and a way of life for a lot of people in this region. So it's good to have the conversation. And yes, and driving around the Highway 12 up Heller Bar the last few years, it's not right seeing so few boats, and the excitement's not there. And I've only been around since the 90s. So I don't know pre-dam stuff. And we've had little blips of good numbers, random variables that line up, and the excitement down there, and seeing, packed boat launches and guys line up the river, swinging flies. However you want to catch these fish, it doesn't matter to me. It's all about the fish. And I think, seeing the restaurants and everybody busy down there, that's a good thing for me and for my region here. And I think, the conversation has changed a little bit. Instead of just the fish, it's about what can we do, because the fish, I believe, will come back. You guys have read some great articles. It's the science base. It's not just about catching fish. That's maybe the least bit of what we have to sacrifice. But if it all comes together, I think it's just for the region, for the Northwest. Without salmon or steelhead, it doesn't seem like the Northwest. So it's worth fighting for.
That's for sure. Tom, I'm going to spin right back to you and put you on the spot. I'm sorry I said I wouldn't put anybody on the spot, but I think I can. So in a nutshell, the Cook's tour version of this, tell us why the problem is with the dams. Why can't we just work around the dams? Why can't we just build diversions or whatever? Why do they have to come out? And that's part one of the question. Part two of the question is, there is hope. The science tells us that if we get rid of the dams or find alternative, it's going to work. The fish will come back. Can you hit those two topics, please?
Yeah, sure. I think the main problem is with the dams. A lot of people think of, when they're thinking of a dam, they think of the salmon swimming upstream and going through fish ladders and, going on up into their natal waters and spawning. But really, a lot of it is the smolts, the young that hatch and are floated down with these flushes of water. They don't make it back down to the ocean, frankly, in any sustainable numbers at all. They get ground up in the turbines. They get eaten by a lot of predators. They get it stuck in these kind of warm water reservoirs that are just stagnant. They really, historically depended on going down the river, with these flushes of water. And so when you got a stagnant reservoir, they're not going down the river. So that's number one. And, I think absolutely part of that is taking out those dams. And that's just kind of answers your number two question is, once those dams are out, you don't have the turbines, you don't have the slack warm water. You actually are getting those smolts back down to where they need to be, down to the ocean. And frankly, that's going to benefit everybody, because, if you're fishing even in the ocean, some of those fish are going to go out there and be caught out there in the ocean and commercial fishery, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, does that kind of cover it there for you, Kirk? I mean, that's it in a nutshell in the layman's terms. And I'm a layman. I'm not going to start, spouting science, but it's just common sense.
And Tom, that the magic number is 4%. Do I have that right? If four out of 100 smolts survive, this thing will start ticking in the right direction. Did I have that right?
So 2 is the number for persistence.
2 is
And then-
persistence.
And then
Okay.
we need 4% smolt to adult returns to actually rebuild the stocks. And so, if you look at a map of the Columbia, and there's a really good one that our good friend Garrison Doctor did in the most recent issue of Trout, it shows that if you look at the 4 Columbia River dams, so there's the John Day River, where fish have to go over 3 dams. And right now, those fish, Chinook in that system are doing about 3.5% return. So they're doing good. And that's actually, not the best habitat. That's not the Snake River Basin when you're talking about high quality habitat. The Yakima fish have got to go over 4 dams, and they are at about 2.5% for Chinook. The Snake River Basin fish, they've got to go over 8, right? Because they got to get over those last 4 on the lower Snake. And they're at 0.8% right now, like less than 1%, that is a quick path to extinction. So I think, for folks who say, well, what if we take the dams out and the fish don't come back? Like it's pretty clear to us that the fish are capable of coming back, just looking at those other rivers. And we know that the Snake Basin it's an incredible piece of habitat. I mean, this is one of the biggest pieces of wild country in the lower 48. It's pristine. It's got great water, and there's a whole bunch of it. If we can give them a chance to get there, they're going to do well.
What's the timing on all this? Sorry, but I mean, if we don't do anything, how long do the salmon and steelhead have? And if we do something, when will we start seeing a return on the effort?
It's hard to say exactly. We probably have less than 20 years until extinction. The incredible thing about these fish is they're really resilient, right? They've survived through the eons. They've seen ice ages come and go. They've seen the river literally change shape, and they've managed to find ways to persist. And I think they're showing us that right now, right? They've been just really beaten down by these 4 dams for 50 years. And we've known that this was happening. I mean, people knew when the dams went in that it was going to be probably the end of salmon and steelhead. So, I think it just shows how resilient the fish are that they've made it this far. And they could go longer, but we don't have much time. I mean, we need Congress to act, because once Congress does act, it'll take time to actually, implement dam removal. It's not going to happen overnight. So we are definitely bumping up against the deadline for action right now.
One of the guys that I interviewed for the story of the river is named Bill Platts, and he's 93 years old, native Idahoan, and he would go as a kid up over into the Salmon River and Snake River country and catch lots and lots of salmon. And he said it very well to me. He says, it was big things that took him out. Big ag, big mining, big power. And he says, we're going to need to do big things to bring them back. And this is a big thing. 4 major dams. We're going to, but if it was easy, anybody could do it. And I think it's just a really, poignant story that we can solve and we can resolve. And so I think, here's a guy that's 93 years old and can remember bringing salmon back to the Treasure Valley by the truckload in Model Ts and throughout the 1930s and 40s.
Are you sensing, Mike, some more resolve amongst those in the communities? Are you feeling it?
I do. I feel and I try and reach out to just people I know growing up on the Palouse, from everybody who needs that river. And there's more, nobody wants to lose the fish, but when we talk about other avenues and it's just not about the fish, it brings more people to the table. And so, yeah, I do. I think there's more talk about it and more leaning towards it than even a few years ago. That's saying, hey, if we can make this work, we don't want to lose these fish. And like I said, that's a byproduct of getting everything else and doing it the right way. And I think there's a great opportunity for it.
Yeah.
You know, I
Kirk-
think another thing that, you know, not to go off on a tangent here, but there's an incredible economic opportunity for us. And you're seeing more and more people move to these regions for quality of life things. And in talking to some of these old timers, there was an incredible, vibrant community there, like a town like Lewiston that had many, many marinas and big sandy beaches, and just a incredible river community and interaction with the river. You know, these dams come out, we're restoring, we're almost inventing a new river. You know, there were 60 rapids, more than 60 named rapids on the Snake underneath where the reservoirs are now. You know, so you could just think about the river rafting and the fishing and just frankly, the economy that goes along with it, you know, that I think is just something that's untapped and really could add to the diversity of that economics in that area, and also to the you know, to the quality of life of not only the people that are living there now, but the people that are going to be coming. And so I think that's a really important thing for me as I look at this whole issue.
I think it touches on a big idea that to me is, you know, we mentioned the similarity to the Everglades, and it ties in nicely to that, which I know has helped. There's a lot of optimism around the Everglades right now, and I think people understand some things about it and are able to get behind it. So I wanted to touch quickly on that. I wanted to use it to lead into a question for Tom and Mike. I'll tell you what the question is ahead of time, but I'm interested from your standpoint. What's the biggest thing right now getting in the way? But before I ask that, I'll kind of frame kind of how I like to think of it a little bit from a slightly further distance than all of you. But the comparison to Everglades is interesting. You know, when you think about fixing something that's already happened, the habitat in Florida, it's all about restoring the flow of water to replenish the Everglades and the Florida Bay habitat. Because if you have no habitat, if you have no water, you have no fish. And obviously the similarities there with the snake and access to habitat for salmon steelhead is pretty obvious. The scale is really, really interesting. We're talking about two really, really monumental and special and unique and giant ecosystems, right? So we've talked about it. Snake River Basin's approximately 50% of best cold water habitat for salmon steelhead left in the lower 48. That's a treasure. That's a big treasure, right? In Florida, it's 3 million acres of freshwater and estuary wetlands that are critical to. I mean, and when you start fixing it, things respond. They come back, and then the urgency. I mean, that word extinction is not thrown around lightly. That's a big deal, and one that's used both with the Everglades and here. And we're talking about irreversible damage with a significant national treasure that is this ecosystem. I mean, this is an American. These are both American treasures on a large scale. And I think what's so interesting, this is what leads into my question specifically around this issue and what's kind of getting in the way, or what's the next big thing that really gets some momentum behind it, is that, you know, what we see in the Everglades and also what we've seen in Bristol Bay is, yes, these issues are complex and they're also powerful. There are a lot of different stakeholders. They're all coming at it from different backgrounds. And they're all passionate because in one way or another, they have skin in the game. And what's really powerful is that they are all agreeing that this is a big opportunity. I mean, you know, when we look at Everglades and Bristol Bay over the last couple of years, you know, unfortunately, we're talking about a time period where as a country, we're pretty divided on a lot of different things, or at least a lot of the things that people are talking about. But what's wild is that some of the biggest things that have brought people together during this time, and when I'm saying brought people together, I'm talking about native communities, local communities, national communities, scientists, anglers, hunters, business people, federal officials from both sides, environmentalists, economists. I mean, you name it. People are all agreeing that this is, there are so many advantages to this. And that's pretty powerful when you people looking at it from all those different angles, agreeing this is the right thing to do. It makes it a lot easier for everybody else to understand and get behind. And that's powerful. And that starts conversation and that leads to action. So, I guess Mike and Tom, again, from my seat, I'm looking at this and this feels like one of those things, which is, yes, it's scary, but it's also exciting because it's like, hey, everybody's kind of coming together on this, or at least the potential for us to fix this in the time we need to fix it feels possible from where I'm sitting. But, you're closer to it. I mean, what are you sensing that's the biggest thing kind of that's blocking that or getting in the way that we need to kind of bust through or climb over?
Well, Mike, you're right there. Why don't you, what's your perspective?
Kind of like you alluded to, like, just, it seems like a general, in this world we live in, there's a lot of contentious, and it has to be like, I win or you win. But this has to be like, we all come together. We all might sacrifice a little bit, but we can all come out winning. And I think, as much as it's more about the fish have shown us, there's no denying that this has gone down. We can talk a lot about other arbitrary facts, not necessarily arbitrary, but stuff we don't see firsthand, the ocean conditions, this, that. This is something that we are seeing directly. When you're driving up and you see one boat at Cherry Lane in October, that is a direct effect of this. So I think that has allowed for more conversation. And I think people backing up and saying, hey, this has to be the whole community here. And this is so wrapped up in the fabric of this area, but we can change it and make this area, I think, better potentially for a lot of recreation and stuff like that. But I think there's more ways for everybody to win. And as we finally have a proposal in Congress that I don't understand it all, but it does lay out for a lot of different concepts and takes, from what I gather, everybody into consideration. And that's bringing more people to the table than just one special interest group trying to get this for them. This has to be something where the whole community, the whole region gets behind, because it's going to benefit the region, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
I think if I could just jump in here too, I think, on a very optimistic note, and there's another article in this issue of Trout magazine, about the native tribes and how they are united on this. And I think that's a really, really important point here is these are folks that depend on this river in a different way than maybe a recreational angler does. But it's the same deal, and they're united. So I think really what kind of is hampering us right now is a lack of imagination and a lack of civil conversation. And I think that's what we need to have here. It was obviously a big imagination that put in these dams to begin with. Big imagination could take out the dams and come up with ways to make everybody whole. We've got, when those dams went in the 70s, we didn't have the wind power like we have now. We didn't have the solar power like we have now. There's other things, there's other ways we can get power. There's other ways we can get grain to the market. There's other ways that we can supplement and diversify economics in the region. So I think, and then frankly, making the tribes whole and making coming together on the treaty rights that were promised back in the 1840s. So I think that's really, really important as we go forward, is to think about who's united, what is already happening that's proactive. We've got a Republican congressman in Congressman Simpson, who's working with Democrats. And so I think that's what we need to do, and we need to keep doing it. And we got to have some civil conversations about this.
The question from the chat room says, so is the power from the dams needed now? I mean, it's a fair question. Are we in a spot where we can work around that issue?
I'll take that one, Dieter. It's, when I was in high school, I drove this 1958 half-ton Ford pickup to school. had a 3 on the tree. That pickup was about the same era that these dams were designed in. And I loved it, man. It looked cool, but it was very, very unreliable. I spent more time working on it than I spent driving it. Had the gas tank behind the seat. And when we're thinking about these dams, like, this is the same thing. This is pretty old technology. These dams make about 1,000 megawatts annually, all 4 of them together. It's not an insurmountable amount of power. It's a pretty small piece of power in the Bonneville Power portfolio, a little less than 4%. And it's excess power, right? They like this power for when it gets really hot and really cold so they can flip on the switch. But we can do better, right? We're not driving around in 1958 pickups anymore. We're not carrying around a lot of designs from the 1950s. We've got options. We can replace this power, and we can do it in a way that's more efficient, that doesn't kill salmon. This is an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity not just to save salmon, but to move the Northwest into the 21st century. And I think Tom kind of, when you talk about a challenge to the imagination, it is hard to think about something new, something different. But it's just an incredible chance to do something really big and change the Northwest for the better.
So we're getting near what we had planned, is near the end of our time. We can stick around for a little bit longer. So we've got some questions popping up. Greg, if you want to, sort through those and throw them out to the panel, I'm happy to step aside and let that happen. I will say this, when this is obviously an ongoing thing, and I'd encourage people to tune in tu.org/magazine. You can see the stories from this print issue of the magazine. We're putting them online now. There's an action alert there where people can take action and voice their opinion and help us out move this needle forward. So do please know that we're not just going to do this once and talk about it, and this is going to be something we're going to keep working on. I think it's the defining issue for this generation of anglers, and I'm on record saying that. So what other questions do we have, Greg?
Sorry, I was on mute. We got some great questions on here. I do just want to say we will answer all of these. If I don't think we're going to get to all of them in this conversation, but we will answer them all. I think one that we've got that we can tackle in our time left is, what do you think the recovery of these fish would mean from an economic standpoint? I think Simon, you or Mike might want to tackle that one.
Sorry, can you repeat it? Go ahead.
Just what would recovery mean from an economic standpoint? If we actually get to a point where we got hundreds of thousands of salmon streaming back into Idaho, what does that mean?
I mean, so I think that's what all of a sudden our government and sort of these associations are starting to finally look. We're now able to put a price tag on these things that have a seat at the table when these conversations are being had. When they're thinking about all these other industries and what they're worth, the outdoor industry is now has a seat at the table with some pretty darn big dollar signs next to it, right? I mean, if we just look at the outdoor recreational economy of the 3 states we're talking about, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, it's a big B number. It's $18 billion. And you can get specific and understand what does that mean from a water recreation. But again, what we're talking about extends far beyond fishing, which again is I think why this issue is so compelling, or why I actually think it's easy when we start helping facilitate the conversations that people are talking about. And when we start talking about it ourselves and help the story be told, it's pretty easy to get behind it, because you're talking about adding a significant tailwind to an $18 billion industry. People go to the Northwest to seek outdoor recreation. And you can't even, I mean, that becomes a flywheel. So I'll give you an example. There are case studies to pull from, right? The Rogue River Savage Dam removal in 2009. There have been strong returns since that removal. And we hear it from outfitters, guides, and lodges that they're seeing a boom. Their small businesses are growing as a result of that, and they're employing people because of that. And again, I'm talking about a small percentage of the extended different industries that benefit from this type of thing. You talk about what's at risk. I mean, we recently, we saw a recent emergency closure on the John Day River because of record low steelhead runs. I think it was the lowest since the late 1930s. And you have businesses that have to shut down for 3 months. That's a death wish, right? So Mike was talking about before. I mean, if this is stitched into sort of the culture and the geographic kind of identity of this place, again, we're talking about extinction. We're talking about extinction with fish. We're talking about extinction as far as a way of life. We're talking about economic extinction. But it feels really, really similar to Bristol Bay and to Everglades, where if we fix this and we can do it quickly, there's going to be so much more benefit than we're even kind of penciling out right now.
Yeah, I think it'd be, there's no doubt it would be good for, especially the fishing side. But there's a restaurant, Roosters, down in Clarkston, and as a kid we'd go there, and I remember seeing the confluence of the Snake and the Clearwater as a free flowing pictures from back in the day. And the names of those 140 rapids downstream, that intrigues me, opening that up. So I think that's a whole nother place that hasn't even been developed yet, so yeah, I think the economic, and it's just hard because it's nice that I think we have, or the government has started recognizing that, because we're saying, oh, this is more important than your job. And that's not what we're saying. I hope, that's what I'm thinking. And it's just about, yes, the benefit from, Orofino to Riggins and everywhere in between, I feel is legit.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say, when we first started running this campaign, we asked people to tell us stories about the Snake River. And one of the emails that we got from all over the country and a couple from outside the country were people telling us how they used to come to Idaho. There was a time when they used to come every year, and they don't anymore, but they want to come back. We heard that story so many times from people who live, all over the country, saying, man, I used to get on a plane and fly there, or I used to drive up from Arizona. It was an annual trip and I did it with my buddies or whatever. And they're all waiting to come back.
It's so true. And again, I don't mean to diminish all the other really meaningful positions that are really relevant to this topic. But if you want to look at it purely from a business standpoint, I mean, again, you can look at the Everglades. I mean, Florida is a very pro-business state. They have a governor that's extremely pro-business. And this is a big, they're going to bat for the Everglades because of what they know it means for their business. So again, there are tons of other very relevant and really meaningful ways to look at this. But if you want to look at it from an economic standpoint, it's compelling.
And dollars talk right now. You got to be able to break it down to make it efficient, and that is good.
Well, as promised, I thought that we'd go about 40 minutes, and here we are. I wanted to say, as Greg said, that we will answer the questions that are on the thread. Someone will get back to you if you've written something and you haven't heard it here. We promise we'll get back to you. Do encourage everyone to tune in into what we're doing at tu.org and also check out the print issue of the magazine. I want to thank Tom Reed for being the guest editor of our feature well for this. Tom was an amazing help, and it's an issue that I'm very, very proud of, and Tom was so instrumental in all of that. So I want to call Tom out. All you guys, everybody, I want to thank you all. And does anyone have any parting thoughts? Other than my parting thought is thank you. We can do this. My New Year's resolution is to keep the pedal to the metal and make some tangible change next year for the fishing community, for the conservation community, for the boating community, for everybody who's a stakeholder, for the tribes, everybody. We can all win if we work together. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think my parting thought would be On so many things in this country, we just need to start listening rather than talking, and we need to try and understand the other person's point of view. And I think this is a case in point where we can actually do something really incredible if we listen to each other and try and come up with a creative solution.
I agree. My last thought would be just, you guys really have brought this whole encompassing thing in. And I think that's what's driving the conversation more now than ever, talking about the best for everybody, and let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. And I love the challenge to stay curious and to listen and to learn. I think it's on all of us to figure out how we make this a really easy story to understand and make it, Tom, you've done a great job at this, and we need to continue to lean into it. I think what we can do is we can show up and help people understand this in its simplest terms. And when we do, I think I would really enthusiastically invite others to join in on the conversation, because it might not feel much, but I can tell you that was critical to some of these other awesome things that are in place that are working. And there are a lot of easy ways to participate. I mean, it's really encouraging. This is from that same issue. I mean, you look at the ad, I mean, these are all the different companies that want to put their name on this, right? And encourage companies it's really easy for companies to get behind this. And if you know one, help talk about it, get more and more people behind this, because it really is a conversation that I think will bring tons of different people together. And honestly, that's really refreshing and energizing right now. So I'm looking forward to that being the case here as we go forward.
Well, thank you all very, very much. Greg, anything from you? You want to jump in, or you're good?
Thank you guys so much. This was great. Really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
And,
guys.
we'll do more. Happy holidays.